Hi, I'm Melissa Bridges, and I'm the Performance and Innovation Coordinator for the City of Little Rock. My position is to work with all of the other departments to find out what information they have and how we can share that with each other and with our residents. Today, I'm here to give you a tour of the city's Data Hub. Our Data Hub was launched in 2016, but over the last 4 years, we've added many different pieces to it, additional data pieces, and today we want to be able to show those to you. So we're going to start on the home page. When you come to the City of Little Rock's Data Hub, which its website is data.littlerock.gov, you'll see a welcome message that gives you an explanation of what you'll find on the site. You'll also find a search bar, so if you're looking for certain things like business licenses, police incidents, planning permits, you can type straight into that search bar. Underneath that, you'll find a carousel that features some of our featured sites. Right now we've got Little Rock's Performance Dashboard on there, our mapping application, an article about What Works Cities, which is a national movement to improve data and performance across the entire country, and also a link to our Citizenconnect site. Below that, you'll find the categories. All of our data that's on the site is cataloged into these different categories. If you're familiar with the City of Little Rock's budgeting process, and you know that there's always a letter in the front of that budgeting book from the Mayor and Board of Directors, they talk about the priorities. This is how we categorize how we spend our money, and this is also how we categorize our data. The categories that we have are Safe City, where you'll find police, fire, code enforcement, those type things. Economic Development, where you'll find business licenses, planning permits. Basic City Services, where you can find 311 information. Infrastructure, which you can find both the infrastructure that you would think of out in public works areas, but also the networking infrastructure, so our IT information is in there. Quality of Life, which would include information from our parks and our zoo. And High Performing Government is where we put our annual reports on our open data program and our What Works Cities certification that we're working on. So scrolling back up to the top, let's walk through the menu. Home, if you click on it, will bring you back to this page. This is the home page. When you click on About, it takes you to a page that gives you a little bit more of the background of what this page is about, why we have an open data site, what open data is, and information for those people that are in the community that might want to play a little more with the information and that are developers that want to do additional programming on top of it. There's also a contact email for the program, which is data@littlerock.gov. Next to that, you can click and find the user guide. On User Guide, we've got some simple instructions on how to navigate through the site. It walks you through what all you can find on the site. It walks you through what a data catalog is, and we'll go through each of these. It shows you information about what you will see as you go through. There's a link to where you can actually get to some short videos that walk you through how to do different things on the site. It walks you through how to use the Citizenconnect site with screenshots and instructions, and it also walks you through what you'll see when you go over to the performance pages as well. The next menu item that we have is called Data Apps. In the Data Apps menu, you'll find links to the sites that I was just talking about. So our Citizenconnect site is an interactive map that layers our police information, our 311 information, our business licenses, our planning permits, and our land bank properties all onto one map where you can type in your home address, your business address, your kid's school address, and find information about what's going on in the city. Performance measures are a way that the city can use the information that they have from each of the departments to see how we're doing and measure how many calls are we getting into the 911 system. How long is it taking us to respond to various different things. Mapping applications is built on what's called a GIS system, which is Geographical Information System. It has various different maps for things such as where you can find different parks and the amenities in them. There's an annexation map that you can see how the city has grown through the years. There's various things there. And then the data catalog, that's the repository of where all of our underlying data sets are. Next to that, you'll be able to find the resources menu. Under the resources menu, we've got a tab called Additional Data Sources. A lot of times we get asked for Where can I find the current population of Little Rock? Where can I find some demographic information? And recently, with all of the coronavirus news that's going on, people want to be able to find information about it as well. So underneath the Additional Data Sources tab, you can click on that link and it will bring you to a page where we've gathered various different data sources from across the country so that you can find information at your fingertips about Arkansas and Little Rock specifically. At the top, we've got the COVID-19 data sources, and as you scroll down, you'll see that there's various different state and national sources. We've got census data sources, so you can see what's going on with the census count. And then there's additional demographic data resources. Again, we get asked for questions about where can I find this type and that type of information all the time, so we've tried to make it easy and put them all on one page for you. Back on the Resources tab, underneath the data sources, you've got a link back to the City of Little Rock's website. Underneath those, there's 3 links to places that start with Socrata. Socrata is our technology vendor that our data hub runs on, and these are underlying video tutorials and knowledge-based articles. So if you'd like to dig a little bit deeper into how the site works, that's how you can get there. But for now, let's go back to the home page and go ahead and enter into the site so that you can see what information is available to you. There's several different ways to get into the site itself to see the underlying data. Again, you can either search in the search bar, you can click on one of the categories, or you can go back to the Data Apps menu and click on Data Catalog. That's the way we're going to go in this time. Inside the data catalog is where all of the underlying information lives. We try to always put featured content at the top of the page. These tend to be the items that people search for most often. And what we've done is we've built out what are called insight pages on the data sets that people want to see most. We're going to click into the Little Rock Police Department Statistics Insights. All of these pages work exactly the same, so it doesn't matter if you're looking at 311 information, police information, planning information. All of them have the same functionality on them. On an Insights page, you'll notice that as you hover over each of the different tiles that are on there, it starts presenting you with broken down information. If you want to start asking questions of the information because you're curious to know how many aggravated assaults have we had this year compared to last year, you can actually use the pre-built filters on the site to be able to do it. So if we click on the year 2020, you'll notice that all of the other categories just changed. And then if we want to see just aggravated assaults, we can click on that as well. And now we can see that in the year 2020, in the category of aggravated assaults, we've had 2,193. The additional tiles down below actually have outlines of neighborhood associations. So if you're looking for your particular neighborhood association and you want to be able to find it on the map, you can hover over and you can see the name, and you can actually filter down to specific categories just inside your neighborhood association boundaries. Again, all of the Insight pages work exactly the same. They all are pre-built filters sitting on top of the information. You'll notice up here in the upper right-hand corner, it always gives you what the source data set is. These are the rows and columns. Think of it as an Excel spreadsheet that all of these maps and charts are built on top of. So let's click on that and see what it looks like. Inside your data set, you will always start on what's called a primer page. On the primer page, you'll see the title of what the data set contains. You'll see the category, Safe Cities. You'll be able to see a description of what information is in that data set. You'll be able to see when it was last updated, which department in the city provides that information. You'll be able to see contact information to who it is that owns the data set and how to contact them. You'll be able to see how often it's updated. This one happens to be updated weekly. And you'll be able to see additional information as to how many times it's been looked at, how many times someone has come in here and downloaded it. And you can also see information about what's inside each of the columns. This is called the metadata. So it's the data about the data. It gives a description of what each of the columns in the data set is talking about. And then at the very bottom, you have what's called a preview. It'll show you what it will look like when you actually go click into the data set itself. You'll notice that you've got a button down here that says View Data or Create Visualization. The really nice thing about our data hub is you as a resident can go in and create your own maps and charts and graphs. You can create your own visualizations. So if you happen to be a neighborhood association president and you want to have a monthly report for your neighborhood association, you can create your own items on this site. You just simply sign up for a free account, and we've actually got several neighborhood associations that do that. So let's scroll back up here to the top. And let's look at the options that we have up here. Again, you have a View Data, which will take you into the data set itself. You have Visualize, which is where you can open the information into other systems, or you can create a chart, a graph, a map straight onto our platform. You can export it, so if you want to take the information from our site and put it into a different system, you can do that. If you're a developer and you want to be able to grab what's called the API, here's where you'd be able to do that, and you can pull the information from our site onto yours or into another system. And then you can also share it out on social media, and you can have an option to contact the dataset owner or access it via Socrata's API, which is called OData. But let's click on View Data so that you can see what the actual data set looks like. Again, while we're on the police data set, it doesn't matter if you're on the planning permits, the 311, the business licenses, they all function the same. And you should be presented with a very similar screen on each of the data sets. We try to always include a date and time when we have that information. Inside the police data set, the unique identifier for each thing is called their incident number. But from left to right, you'll be able to see menu options. If you're happening to looking for a specific address or a specific type of incident, you can search in the search bar and it will show you that information. If you want to see what other things that are already built on top of this information, you can click More Views and it'll show you the different visualizations that we've already created. If you want to come in and start creating some of those things yourself, just like in Excel, there's a filter option. And you can go through and add filters and say, I only want to see robberies, or I only want to see incidents from this date to that date. Underneath Visualization, again, you can create a new map or chart. There's another option on this tab as well to export the information. Discuss is where you would want to put a comment on the data set. We don't currently have this activity turned on, but if that becomes something that our residents want to be able to do so that they can ask questions back and forth, we can do that. Embed is the option if you want to pull our information over onto another website. It's already got a pre-built embed for you. And again, About takes you back to that primer page that we just looked like so that you can see who the data set owner is, when it was last updated, and what things have been done to it. So that's a basic tour of how you walk through the different data sets. Again, if you happen to want to save anything that you've created on the site, you simply click the Sign In button and you'll be presented with a screen where you can create a free account. That way, if you have visualizations or maps or charts or graphs that you want to keep and come back to and be able to use for your purposes, the site will hang on to them for you. Now let's go back to the home page and talk about some of the other sites that we were looking at before. Again, down here on our carousel, we've got featured sites. I've already got a couple of them open up here in the tabs, but if you were to come and click on Little Rock Performance, it would bring you to this page. This is where we have gone in and created dashboards around different pieces of data. They're all categorized around those same 6 categories. So the Safe City, Economic Development, Basic City Services, Infrastructure, Quality of Life, and High Performing Government. And this is where we can start telling stories with the data. This is where we can start seeing what impact are we having through the things that we're doing at the city to see if we're making a difference or not. So let's take a look at the Economic Development page. When you click on the Read More button, it will open up a new page, and this works the same for each of the different categories. You'll be presented with the policy statement that the Mayor and Board of Directors have presented in the budget book that explains what is the city's stance on economic development, what is the definition by which we're using to look at this information. Inside this category, we currently have building permits issued and active and new business licenses. So let's click through and look at the active and new business licenses. Again, each of these performance pages is taking the information that was in that underlying data set and going a little bit deeper to tell the story. Each of the pages have 3 questions on them. What are we measuring, which gives an explanation of what it is that we're looking at. Why are we measuring it, which gives an explanation of why is this important for us to look at, and how are we doing, which gives us kind of a report card on it. You'll notice that on this site, you've got the information in the data table itself. You've got a visualization which shows business license categories by classifications, and you've got business license categories, but they all have additional information on them. This one happens to have a filter on it where you can look for the start date. So if you're looking to see how many new businesses have been able to open up during this past year because of everything that's going on, you can use that filter to do that. You will also see on each of those a link back to the source data. So that when you click on that will get you back to those underlying tables of rows and columns of information. Most of the charts and graphs also have a legend on them so that you can see what information is presented. And again, they all have a header on it and they have those 3 questions. So when you're looking at the performance pages, there should be continuity as you move through each of those. The next site that we want to look at is Citizenconnect. This is that interactive mapping application that I was talking about earlier. So on the menus on Citizenconnect, let's start over here on the left-hand side. You have certain map options on this. The pre-filtered map that comes up is the 7 city wards. But if you're interested in seeing your neighborhood association, we also have that listing as well. You can either hover over the map or you can use the little magnifying glass and you can go in and type in the name of your neighborhood association and choose it, and you'll notice that over here on the middle part in the map has now repositioned itself to just show you the information inside those boundaries. If you would like to look at more than one outline at a time, you now have the option to turn on more than one map at a time. The 3 maps that we have are the 7 city wards, the neighborhood association boundaries, and the current police patrol district boundaries. The additional items that you can do are the types of maps. The preset one is a street map. Most people are used to seeing this if you've ever used Google Maps on your phone or looked at anything. The next one is called a heat map. What a heat map does is when you click on it, it will show you clusters of activity of whatever information is being presented on the map. I always like to caution people that when you look at heat maps, depending on how zoomed in you are or not, because right now, remember, we're looking at a specific neighborhood association, the clusters tend to get a little wonky. And I will show you that when we zoom back out by hitting this little subtraction button, and you'll see that where we had separate items inside that boundary, it now just looks like one big red blob. So I always caution people when you're using heat maps to just know that depending on how close in or far out you are on the map, they present things differently. The last one is called a Choropleth Map. What this map does is it gives you counts inside the different boundaries of whatever information is being presented. Since we have just the Love Neighborhood Association on here, I'm going to click on this X and get out of it, and let's take it back to all of the neighborhood associations. I'm going to hit the little subtract button down here and zoom back out. And now you can see that they're not only color-coded based on how many 311 requests have happened inside their boundaries, it'll present you with a number of them as well. And then there's a legend at the bottom to tell you what the color coding means. Following down the menu, you'll notice that we've got 3 different places that prompt on the map when you turn it on. Those are the neighborhood resource centers, the blue buildings are the police facilities, and the red buildings are the fire stations. Underneath that, the date range that is the default on the Citizenconnect site is the past week, but you can change it to whatever you need it to be. If you're only interested in the last 3 days, the last month, last 3 months, or if you've got a specific date range that you want to see, you want to say, let's see the whole year, you can actually come in and you can change it, or you can actually go back and change it to another year in the past, depending on how far back the data goes. But let's go ahead and stick with this year, and we'll change it to January 1st, 2020 through today. And now you'll notice that the numbers in each of the categories have risen significantly. Underneath that, these are the different data items that you'd be able to see on this map. So we have 311 requests, police incidents, business licenses, land bank properties that are available for purchase, and building permits. It defaults with only the 311 items turned on, but this check mark lets you know what's turned on and what's not. Let's go up here and let's change our map back to the street map so that we can see the individual items. And what you'll see is when you're zoomed out, and now that we've got our date range from January 1st through today, the clusters start turning into numbers instead of individual yellow icons, which are the phone icons. So let's change our date range back to this past week so our map's not so cluttered. When you hover over the individual icon for 311, it will tell you what address that request was made for and what type of request was made. Inside each of the menu items, you can see individual categories, and anytime you see an arrow to the right of the category, you know that it has subcategories inside it. This is where you can pick and choose what it is you actually want to see. So if you really don't care to see the park's landscaping tickets, or trail maintenance, or trash, you can uncheck those and the map will readjust based on what question you want to ask. You can also layer different types of information on top of each other. Let's talk about rate for a second. One of the things that you will notice both on the Data Hub and on the Citizenconnect is if you click on this category, it will not put a dot on a map. The reason for that is the city decided through our data governance structure that we would not re-victimize those victims. Some of those rapes occur in homes and in private residence, and we did not want to put those addresses out. So while the count will be there, you will not actually see a dot on a map for those. So please just know that when you're looking at information. But let's go ahead and put burglary on there, and let's go ahead and put theft on a building, and we'll see what that does to our map. Again, each of the categories works exactly the same. You can turn on and off whichever category you would like. And I will tell you, if you start turning them all on, it will get pretty cluttered pretty quickly. Once you have whatever information you want to look at on the map, you can then come over to this right-hand menu, which shows what are called advanced trends. It shows you a little bit of simple trend analysis, which lets you know how many of those type tickets have come in across each of the hour slices throughout the day. So where we're looking at on the map now, there have been 426 311 requests for the past week in this portion of the map. You can also expand that menu and you can see the individual requests that are on there. The other nice thing that you can do on this page is if you want to print this, there's an option to print straight from this page. And if you would like to download just this portion of the information, you can do that as well. Underneath the places, it will again show you the addresses and contact information for any of the icons that you see at the screen. So this is the Citizenconnect site. And the last thing that I want to show you on the Citizenconnect site is the menu options. On each of our data sites, we've tried to make sure that we have links to go back to the other sites. So you'll notice on this one as well, you can go back over to the Data Hub. You can go to the City of Little Rock's main website. You can go to the City of Little Rock's 311 page if you needed to enter a 311 request. And you can also go to the City of Little Rock's mapping application site, which is what we'll look at next. And then you'll see some sites, some links for the technology partners from Socrata and Tyler as well. The sign-in button, you can also create an account on this site as well if you would like to go in and set up alerts, which is what this button is for, to be able to say, show me anytime a certain type action happens around my address. Now let's hop over to the city's mapping application site. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know when the planning department talks to you, you'll be able to have a more in-depth conversation, but I want to let you know that it's out there and it's available, and there's some pretty amazing stuff that's been added to it. Again, this one is built on top of various different maps in conjunction with our planning and development department and the other departments. So you'll see under public safety, we've got one for fire department and police department, which shows the different layers that they have. You can go in and see what the current land use plan is for the city. So if you're looking to do some development, or if you want to see if there's a development going in around you, what the property is zoned for. You can also see underlying PDFs about the different portions of the land. The transportation plan is pretty interesting because you can see the master street plan for all of the roads. You can see bicycle trails and walking trails that are planned. You can see the planning districts throughout the city. The annexation map, it kind of shows you what it does when you hover over it. This is one of my favorite maps. It shows you how the city of Little Rock's grown. It shows you on a time slider how the city has annexed and during what years we were annexing. Neighborhood association maps. This one's really important for anybody that participates in their neighborhood association. Just like on the Citizenconnect, you can go in and see the boundaries of each of the neighborhood associations on this map, but there's also a link to be able to update any information. So if you've had a new president come in, or you've got a new email or a new contact number that needs to be updated, this would be where you would want to go. There's a map from our bike and pedestrian coordinator that shows all the different bikeways throughout town. So if you're a biker, this would be a good map to check out. You've heard a lot of information lately about how the city is trying to redevelop in different portions of town to make sure that we've got equitable development across town. The economic incentives map has a lot of information around the opportunity zones that are in Little Rock and how different state and federal partners have partnered with the city to be able to bring development back into cities. Down in the public works section, you can see different capital improvement projects that have been done. You can see a map of all of our stormwater system. If you're interested in doing Adopt a Street, you can actually come on here and see which portions of streets are available for adoption. If you're curious about when your recycle is, there was a recycle map where you can put in your address and check it out. Parks and Recreation, you can click into this map and see each of the different parks, and you can see what amenities are available in the parks. In Housing and Neighborhood Association, there again is a neighborhood viewer which shows all of our resource centers, all of our code enforcement officers, and again that neighborhood association list. Every year, the Housing and Neighborhood Department has to create an annual report to the federal government for any of the money that we spend. That's what this Capper viewer includes. And then there's just some interesting information in the historic data. If you're interested in historic Little Rock and you want to know more about the different buildings that used to be here, the different streets that used to be here, how the city looked at various different time periods, definitely check out the historic sites and the historic district maps. There's little icons that you can click on that will open up a picture and will tell you the history of a building or a street. If you need to know who your ward director is, you can use the ward maps. And then we've got census information that we've pulled over from the census site as well. And then lastly, at the bottom, like I said before, we try and cross-pollinate each of our sites with different information. And this is where you can get back to the Data Hub and the Citizenconnect site as well. So I hope that you've enjoyed this brief overview of the city's data resources that we have available for our residents. And again, we're growing this program and it's changing, so I encourage you to check back anytime. And if you would like to reach out to me, please feel free to contact me via email. My email address is mbridges, BRIDGES, @littlerock.gov. Thanks so much.